Hey there, I'm Stacy Tuschl, creator of the Foot Traffic Formula and host of the top-rated Foot Traffic podcast. I am so thrilled to welcome you to the 2021 Mindset Mastery for Business Leaders Summit, hosted by my good friend, Nicole Holland, where I'll be teaching you how to adopt the mindset of a true empire builder. Enjoy.
Stacy, thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to get into this with you. And I want to kick things off with this question. You started building your empire from a really early age, but many business leaders in our audience started their businesses a little later in life. When thinking about the thousands of folks that you've mentored over the years through your foot traffic formula, your masterminds, your live events, private coaching, what are some of the most common mindset blocks that you've encountered that limit a leader's ability to grow a small or medium-sized business into a true empire of their own?
Such a good question. So I think the first thing that comes to mind is allowing themselves to play small. And I'm so guilty of this, right? We figure out like what our normal is or what we think would be good for us, comparing us to, maybe somebody in our local area, somebody we've seen online that we're thinking, oh, apples to apples, I should be able to do this too, right? And all of a sudden, what we're envisioning is just hitting somebody else's goal or what they've done. And then when we hit it, we think I made it. I'm doing it. But if you don't start to really expand your circle, look outside of your local area, you may not even local, maybe you have an inner circle, a mastermind you've been in, but you've been in it for a long time and you're starting to kind of climb to the top. You all of a sudden start to become the biggest and best story in the room, and you might not be able to see what else is possible. So I always tell people, never get too comfortable, right? It's fun to share and it's fun to, sound smart and be able to give great advice in that room. But man, you've got to be able to find a room where you almost are a little scared, like you're at the bottom and you really want to be there, but you're nervous to be there. Oh man, that's the best feeling for me. So I would say just be really careful you don't get too comfortable too soon.
I love that. And I just made this note, expand your network to expand your mind, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
no, go ahead.
I was going to say too, kind of along the same lines of that is we then think, oh, I'm not ready for that yet. I'm still just here. I just had a client who was telling me she just got started in more of a digital space. And she said, I spent 1,000 on Facebook ads and I made 10,000 and then I did it again. And I'm wondering, like, should I try something new now? No, you go back and you spend 2,000 and then 5,000 and then 10,000 and you keep scaling that thing. And she's like, oh, part of her was thinking, okay, that's great. Now what should I try? Now what else? And we start to self-sabotage versus leaning in, going all in and just trying to maximize what's already working.
I love that. I was definitely guilty of this in the past. And it's something that I constantly come back to. And I'm always looking at, okay, what's working now? Let's keep going deep on that. I think that in the online space, at least, a lot of the messaging is do all the things. You got to be everywhere. And so when I came online and I got my start, I believed that. And so I never went deep into any particular thing. I went wide. And of course, we know now that's like the worst thing you can do. And it really is focusing, right? In what's working. And you have an incredible team that you have built up over the years. You are one of the most, you're like one of the, I don't know the word other than most action taker people I've ever met.
Like I would say implementer.
Yes, definitely. Yes. And it's so cool to watch you move through things really quickly. I think that's a special gift and a skill that not many people have, to be completely honest. And you have over these years been able to implement these things, leveraging team, understanding things, getting the support. I remember, and I hope you're okay with me saying this,
go for
but
it.
I remember meeting you the very first time, like our first interaction in 2016 at Podcast Movement, where we were both new
Mhm.
podcasters. And I remember exactly what you were wearing. You were so fancy and
Oh my
beautiful, and we
goodness.
connected. And because I think, had we interviewed each other before that?
I think so. We knew each other when we got there. Yeah.
Yes, virtually. But then we met in
Yes.
person. And I remember like you seemed to me at least a little bit intimidated. Like,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not sure like who to sit with or where to go. Can I go with you? And I'm like, absolutely. I
Yes.
feel the same way. And so from that time, I've seen your online business and your podcast and your presence just expand and expand and expand and get refined and refined and refined. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes we look at folks who are ahead of us, like you, and think, oh, well, I'm behind. I better hurry up. I better figure out what she's doing. I better figure out what he's doing. And how do I do that? But I think that it's really important for us to recognize our own strengths and also you started when you were 17, I think. So you already had so much experience before delving into this new area. Business wasn't new for you. The podcast, the online was new. And so you were able to leverage your skills and abilities and your budget that most people starting out don't have, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that it's been really fun to watch as you've got this great little really, really low ticket program on repurposing things and the content machine, I think it's called, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you go through like, here's what we do because we have this team, because we can be everywhere. You can actually have that depth of reach everywhere. But if folks haven't really gotten a footing on their presence, if you will, on social media, even companies that have been in business for a long time have been are super successful. When they get into the online space, I think a lot of times they lose sight of what's important and where to focus and how to grow to that point. I know that was a lot
I was like, talking. 72 things I want to say back to you. Okay.
Go.
Yes to all of that. So first, absolutely, I was intimidated coming into this space. And that's the feeling that I was just talking about, right? Like I want to be here, but I'm scared to be here. That was me 6 years ago in that room. Now I could walk into that room and be completely fine, but there will be a new room that I could still walk into with 8-figure entrepreneurs. I'm not yet an 8-figure entrepreneur. It would be very intimidating for me to walk in and know they're all producing, $10 million a year or more. Like that's like my next room. Right. So I think that's like you just shared, like I practice what I preach, and you're 100% right. I was like, Nicole, can you be my buddy? Because I don't know anybody and I don't know what I'm doing. Right. So I will say, as somebody who had already experience in business, I really kind of was a little cocky coming into this business. I thought, like, I'm going to be able to do this so much faster because I actually know what I'm doing. Right. But what's funny is, you're right. I knew business, but I didn't know online business, and I didn't know what I didn't know. And there was still so much to learn. So there were pros and there were cons. There were definitely things that I knew, but then even though I knew them, I would forget them, or I would think, oh, but this isn't brick and mortar. This is online. So we should do it this way because I heard this online guru say it. I'm like, wait a minute, Stacy, but you actually know more than this person. And if you could have just done what you want, like gone with your gut, so there were moments I should have trusted my gut. And then there were moments when I'm naive and I didn't know what I didn't know because I've never done whatever it is, this thing that they're training me on. So I think you have to really be very aware of what this is, who you are, what you bring to the table without the drama involved in it. Like, it's okay to say, I don't know, I've never run Facebook ads before, so I'm not really sure what that looks like. Or I've never run Facebook ads at that level. Maybe you've run, you spend $100 a day, but you've never spent $3,000 a day, right? So I think we have to just all understand it's a part of the journey. We all have been in the same situation. I always say, it was so much easier to be an entrepreneur when I was 17, 18, because I was just so naive and so stupid. Like, I didn't know when I was being dumb. Whereas now I'm going, oh, that was a bad decision. And you brought up too, how I had a budget and I had experience hiring. But what happened was, unfortunately, I think I spent my money a little too quickly because I had the funds and we're on these amazing webinars and these amazing, I'm buying everything. And I spent way more money than I ever should have. And that was a big learning lesson for me of everybody's trained in how to sell you and how to get you, right? And now let me be very clear that some of those things is the reason I am here where I am today. So some of them were phenomenal, but why did I need 3 of the same courses when I wasn't even finishing the first 2? And now I'm buying a third person's for the same kind of course, that I already bought. So I think sometimes we can get a little wrapped up in what we're doing and get excited. But, as Nicole had just said, I'm an implementer. So I can do a lot more. I can be in a lot more masterminds. I can do all the things because I have seen the return on my investment, right? I've invested and then I've implemented and then I see the reward. So it makes sense for me to keep doing it. If you keep doing, or consuming, consuming, but you aren't yet to do, you've got to ask yourself, like, what is happening here? Why aren't you doing? Because you can't just be good at listening to podcasts and watching summits. You better listen to this thing and do something from this 1-hour conversation, right? That's the only way this works. So, so much gold in there, and feel free to go in any direction or pick my brain in any way. But I love this conversation.
Yay. I love you so much too. So, okay. What shifted for you? Because I've been there too. When I first started, so I did not have a budget. I knew nothing about online. I had quit my job as a correctional officer and I was like, sink or swim. Nobody's paying the bills, Nicole. You better figure this out fast. And at the time I was so ill. I hadn't been like the doctors were trying to figure out what was going on with me, but I had an autoimmune disorder that couldn't be figured out at the time, right? So at the time, my experience and my belief was that I was trapped and that I couldn't go out and work somewhere because of my illness. And I had to figure out how to bring in the money and work online. At the time, again, I was a ghost. I worked with murderers and rapists. Prior to that, I was removing children. I was doing protection stuff. So the last thing I ever wanted to do was be a public figure and be online. It scared me. But I recognized that in order to meet my objective of being able to earn money from home where I felt safe, I could work the hours that I had the energy to and not have to go and do things that felt bad for me, I was going to have to get really uncomfortable and I was willing to invest. So my personal experience was, I thought, okay, I've worked my butt off. I have credit and I do not recommend this to anybody, but just in full transparency of sharing my story, I ran up over 6 figures in credit card debt to get myself off the ground. And what I believed at the time was that, hey, I'm no spring chicken. I, at the time, was in my late 30s. Yeah, I was almost 40 at the time. And I thought, I have skills and abilities. I am going to leverage those and figure out how to do this, but I need guides. So if I find the right guide, I'll spend any amount of money because I have faith in myself and I am committed to success. However, when I got out there, maybe like you, I started figuring out, like, people would say, yes, Nicole, absolutely. I can help you. I'm going to help you. And I'd look them in the eye. I believe them. And I go, okay, here's my money. Let's do this. And it took me a long time to figure out where the disconnects were with the content, between the content and my ability to receive and integrate. And I think that's a whole nother talk, but I'm wondering if you can speak to in your situation. I know you worked with some pretty big leaders pretty quickly. When you started realizing, hey, I'm buying all this stuff, I'm spending all this money, but I'm not exactly getting the results I had hoped to. How did you come back to where you're at and go, all right, what is this next step that I have to do with this new awareness?
Okay. So I really had to look at where are the holes, where are the problems, what why can I not recreate $1 million business when I already have one? Like what is missing? And the first thing that I noticed was recurring revenue. So in my studios, they sign up and they're basically committed we have their credit card, and every month we charge them for a minimum of 10 months. And most of them come back again. Right. So I realized, oh, this up and down, and I've got to get out of just selling one time, one thing. I've got to figure out a way to get recurring revenue in. So that was one of the biggest things I shifted, was instead of just trying to get one client at $300, I was like, how do I get one client at $300 a month? And how do I get them to keep staying? And how do we get the compound effect in? So one of the things I actually did was I hired a coach that I was working with, and I was making $0. So yes, I invested when I was not making any money. And I remember, and he was $3,000 a month. So this wasn't a cheap coach. This was like, holy cow, 6 years ago. And our first goal was to get me making the 3,000 back. He's like, we're going to pay right off your investment. You're not even have to worry about paying me, because I'm going to help you pay me. Then we're going to 10X it. Right. And that was really like our first goal, was like, get to 3,000. And he said to me, okay, if we can get this $297 a month program, this $300 a month program, we just need 10 clients. Right. And not only that, but we can start getting them in and compounding this up and making it more. And I remember I was like, okay, I'm at my 10. Like, we're here, we're there. And just having that little milestone, he's like, okay, great. We're at 3. Now our goal is 8,500 a month. I'm like, how am I going to 8,500 a month? Like, I just racked my brain to get me to 3,000, but you hit the next milestone. And all of a sudden I'm on track to be $100,000 a year income earner when I had yet to make any money in this online space. So I think just even having those little milestones, but with the recurring revenue. So I wasn't having to like fight each month, so even if one month wasn't great, I still had last month and the month prior, all of those still coming in. So I think that was like lesson number one of go back to what was working. And it was definitely not launching one thing one time and hoping for that one payment. That was one of them. Another thing that wasn't working for me was, I obviously, again, yes, I have a budget. I already have $1 million business, but you have to remember that's a separate bank account. That is a separate entity. I'm not able to just take money from the one business and throw it at the other, right? Like, not legally. So I was borrowing personally. I was personally lending this new business money. So I was very aware. Holy cow, tens of thousands of dollars. I don't even know how much. I probably did borrow the company more than 100,000, like you had said. But at some point, I stopped borrowing personally, and I did just start putting stuff on the business credit card. And I think at the end, I was like 30,000 on that business credit card. And I have never in 19 years of business ever had business credit card debt ever. And it was like making me sick to my stomach. But at the same time, I fully believed I could do this. And I was there and I was so close. And if I could just have a little bit more time and I could just keep refining, I was going to get there. So I think having that like recurring revenue starting to come in started to help. But I also think just getting like a little bit of an assistant, whether that like a virtual assistant, just social media, something. We cannot do everything in our business. You cannot be sitting here posting on social media every single day when you have to run the business as a CEO. And I realized very quickly this social media thing, like I always tell people, I have only been on social media for 8 years total in my entire life. Like Facebook has been around, I don't even know how long, but probably like 15 years or something, maybe ish. I only got on it when my daughter was born and I was like 2 a.m. nursing. Like, what am I supposed to do at 2 a.m.? I guess I'll start a Facebook account and stalk everybody. Like that was my life 8 years ago. And I remember when I got on, people were like, it was like so long since everybody else had been on. They were just like, I can't believe it took you this long to get here. So my point is, all of a sudden I have a business and I don't even know how to use social media because I haven't been using it. So I had to figure out everything. And I wanted to be smart enough to be able to direct people, but I didn't want to be the doer. So that was where I really started to say, okay, how do I hire somebody to be the operator so I can be this visionary and direct them and just go faster? Because like you said, how old was I? I mean, I'm 36, almost 37 now. So I was at 30-ish, but I am impatient. I'm like, I don't care. Like I'm actually planning on working another 30 years, but I'm like, I want this now. So instead of waiting it out and doing it on my own and taking longer, I'm like, who can I hire to help me? And who can I get to coach me to just tell me what not to do so I can move so much faster? So I definitely spent money to get into certain rooms, to get in front of certain people. I mean, one of the things that, just to kind of show you an example, Lewis Howe's mastermind, I spent 40-ish $1,000 to be in that room. I have connections from that room today that still I'm able to connect, network, collaborate. I wrote a book recently and I reached out to Lewis and said, would you be willing to give me a testimonial? Sure, no problem. Here you go. I mean, a written testimonial from Lewis Howe's, like, that is not something where people are just asking and he's just like whipping out, right? So I think sometimes you have to ask yourself, like, what would it be worth to get in that room? What would it be worth for my idol? I'm not saying Lewis, I'm saying your specific, like, who are you looking at? What would it be worth to have them know who you are? Maybe you have this ideal collaborator mind, but like they don't know you and you're not gonna be able to cold pitch them in a DM. But man, if you were in their program and you were one of the star students, they might recognize or take note of you and you might have an opportunity. That could be worth way more than anything you ever pay to invest in their program.
Yes, so good. And there's so much here. I want to just shout out my friend and mentor, Gay Hendricks, who's a part of this summit. He doesn't just do summits, and not only that, like we recorded and then he shared it out on his social. That didn't just happen overnight. I've been building a relationship with him for years and leading with value. So I think something also to even add into what you're saying is, it's not always money. It's understanding who is your person. Like, who do you really, really respect and who do you want to learn from that's already achieved the success that you want to have yourself? That's something that for me, I figured out that I was buying from the wrong people. I was buying from people who basically were, leveraging webinars and things like that with the message of you're not good enough. When it comes down to it, at the end of the day, you're not good enough. If you don't do this thing, you're going to fail. And that messaging I allowed to get into my psyche until at some point I went, this is bullshit. Right? Like, I don't believe in, coming from a background of social services, like I believe in positive parenting, right? I believe in reinforcing good behaviors. And I thought, why I'm so misaligned to be involved and spending my hard-earned dollars on people who are going to tell me what's wrong with me. I want to find the people who've done what I want to do and who want to tell me what's right with me and how to take it to the next level. Is that something is that a similar thing that you've experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. And even you just bringing up, it's not always money. You're right. Sometimes it's just investing time, getting to know that person. You and I have never paid each other money, but we built a relationship. And when you asked for me to do the summit, I'm like, of course. And like, I think I could fully come to you and ask for a favor and we would continue to have that relationship. So I think it's finding people that you can build real relationships with, right? I think investing in the right places when sometimes you may think, oh, I'm above this person. I'm not, like, they're not at my level. That bothers me so much. I see that all the time. Now, yes, there are some boundaries you may have to set up in place to say, I have certain rules. I won't jump on podcasts if they have not been podcasting for anywhere from like 3 months to 6 months, because I just don't want to be on a podcast that doesn't make it, because a lot of them don't. And if you're going to quit, I can't handle that. Like, I don't have time, right? So I'm saying, yes, set clear boundaries, but I don't have a boundary of like, oh, your podcast is only down here and I'm this kind of podcaster, so I can't do your show. Not at all, right? Not at all. So I think really, I think this world can get very superficial and we like quick look and judge at Instagram handles and how many followers and all of that. And I think you've got to really go beyond that. First of all, half of that is so fake anyway. You really don't want to judge it off of vanity numbers that they could have bought, right? So
absolutely,
you really careful.
I'm jumping in there to say that is something that obviously you have figured out in the online space, and I figured out it took me longer than I would have liked, but that's hard to express to people who believe the gurus, right? And they're a guru because they say they're a guru. Anybody can slap a sign on their door, regurgitate stuff that other people have taught them, and you believe them because they're good at the sale. So I think that's really in getting to actually build, to actually do things that are going to move the company forward in the direction that you want, right? Because I think that's something else I'd love for you to speak about is when we think about, and I realize it's foot traffic formula right now, but when I was on your show, it was she's building her empire.
Yes.
And so I think it's really important.
You know what's funny though?
Tell me.
I bet it wasn't. I bet it was Business Rescue Roadmap. I've changed my name 3 times.
When I was on, I believe it was she's building her empire, because that's when I came to talk on your stage, and that was she's building her empire. So maybe it was it may have been Business Rescue Roadmap.
Yeah,
I remember
that. So funny?
But yes, no, but that also speaks to another thing. So I was going to ask you one thing, but I'm going to loop around to this.
Yeah.
So something that you have done over and over that I've admired a lot is that a lot of people get stuck, me included, in like, oh, well, I've already gone through this branding. I've already built a name for myself. And I made mistakes in the past where I just burned it all down because I didn't understand I can take what I've built and build upon it in a new direction. I don't have to burn it to the ground. And I see people, especially now as I've become an investor and have been learning how to invest in companies. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the amount when I started figuring out how like the value of the assets that I have thrown in the garbage over the years. So I think it's crazy. Anyways, I was going to ask you too about like the whole empire building. I think what's important, and I want you to speak to, is that we each have our own clarity around what is an empire to us, because it doesn't have to go, if we're trying to reach somebody else, I believe you mentioned this earlier, if we're trying to meet the perceived goals that other people have, we're not staying true to ourselves. And so at the end of the day, I think it's one of the things that folks become really resentful of their businesses for, or they feel overwhelmed and they're ready to burn it down.
Yeah. So my old brand was she's building her empire. And it was specifically her empire, and it wasn't an empire, right? So I totally agree with you that it's different for each of us. And I think sometimes it even means something different to us in the stage of life we're in. So you may have a stage of, you might be in burnout. You might have been building this business for the last 3 years, and you finally are starting to like get it going. And you are so burnt out that you just want to take a little bit of a breather, right? So your empire this year may look different than when you are fully recharged, ready to go, well vacationed, and you're back and you're ready to do this. So I think it's season of life. Like, do you have children? Are they little? Are you empty nesting all of a sudden? Like, there's so many things. So it's not just about my business. It really is about everything going on in my life. Where am I at right now? What do I want this to look like? When I'm looking at, I've got a first grader and a third grader. So I'm even looking, long term, okay, well, where am I going to be at from now until they graduate? And what does this business look like when they are in college, right? I might go, okay, it's from this season to that season, we're going to be doing X, Y, Z, but whoa, when I'm an empty nester, all hands on, like I'm going way bigger, right? Way more. Who knows? And maybe I won't. Maybe I will be completely off the grid when they go and I take a full break. I don't know. But I always tell people, you have to at least know where you'd like it to go, at least right now, right? So what is the end that you're hoping for, shooting for? So we can start to reverse engineer it today, but then allow it to change. Allow yourself to adapt to sometimes to scrap it, to say, I guess I don't want that. I thought I did, but I didn't know what that actually took. And now that I said I wanted to do a podcast 7 days a week, wow, I really don't enjoy that, right? Like literally things like that. I mean, I came out with 3 a week and I made it for a year and I was like, never again, at least not at that moment, right? So you just don't even, you're guessing on a vision you've never had before. So that means you don't know actually if you're going to like it or not until you get there. And you might get there and say, what have I been working so hard for? Like, this is not what I wanted. And I think sometimes people feel foolish, silly, so they stay unhappy because they don't want to admit that they were wrong. I am totally cool sharing that I've rebranded my podcast 3 times because I'm wrong all the time. And in fact, if you've been right this whole time, that just tells me you wait way too long to make decisions. Like that's what that's telling me, that you take way longer than you probably should. And it tells me I move quick, but I'm not afraid to change when I notice, okay, we've got to go here. Maybe I didn't do it right, but here's the best part. Maybe I didn't do it right, but I learned I didn't do it right because I've been taking action this whole time. And you might still be thinking about the perfect shade of navy for that logo before you ever put it out. And I've already put it out and changed it 3 times because now I've gotten the right color, right? So I think what we're doing, or what you see a lot of people doing with rebranding and shifting and re-niching and all of that, it's part of the process. It's part of the evolution, right?
So good. Yes. Oh my gosh. We have been I like all over. I need to be conscious of the time. So what I want to do is just pause for a moment. And within all of this that you guys have heard so far, I want you to grab your phones. I want you to take a screenshot. And actually, Stacy, you inspire me so much with your social media. And I know that your team has a lot to do with actually getting it, and you record and all the things. But something that I wanted to implement here on the summit is this. So I would love it if everybody would take a screen cap of Stacy and let us know what has been your biggest takeaway so far. What are you loving? Make sure that you hashtag MMFBL. That's for Mindset Mastery for Business Leaders, MMFBL. And also you can use Stacy's hashtag, which not hashtag, but at name at Stacy Tuschl. That's StacyTuschl. Make sure you tag her. Make sure you put on the hashtag, and we're going to love to see what these takeaways are. And you're going to see some serious magic from Stacy's team if you do that. And I'm going to do my best to also pump up the power of your post. So, so many good things. I know I've thrown a bunch at you, and I feel like you probably have more to share. So I'm actually going to not ask a question and give the floor to you.
Yeah, for sure. So I do want to talk about the power of a team because we brought it up a couple times, right? The mindset of I'm not ready to hire. I don't even know how to hire. I'm not ready to, I don't have the money to, right? There's a million reasons why. Maybe you already tried it. It didn't work for me. I got burned last time, right? Oh, she did this, he did that. I really, truly believe that to have the lifestyle any of us want to have, it's not the lifestyle of a solopreneur. It's not. I think that is a very lonely, not fun, overwhelming place to be. Because that means anytime somebody needs something, a customer needs something, it's you. 2 a.m. text message, or not text, but hopefully it's not text message. I hope you did not give me your phone number. However, you wake up to DMs, you're answering, right? You wake up to not nice emails demanding a refund, you're dealing with it. So I believe there's certain things that my team needs to protect me from to not drain my energy, right? So I always tell people I don't even know, in one business, we have like 50, 60 employees. In foot traffic, we have maybe 16. I started with just me. And then I started with just one more person and then another, right? And I think the more you can start to say, what am I frustrated with? What am I not good at? What is slowing me down? What is weighing me down? And how can I find somebody that would actually like that job, that could come on and assist me 5 hours a week? That's it. Even imagine just getting somebody to help you an hour a day right now. Like game changer when you feel like you're drowning. So don't let people tell you how teams are headaches. You don't want them. There's amazing people out there that would love to come work with you, right? Love to. So I think the biggest thing I can share is, because people always say like, how do you get all this done? How do you implement so much? Guys, it's not, I'm very open about this. It's not me. I have amazing people on my team that are helping me, right? That are being there. So I can actually connect with you in the DMs when you message. Like when Nicole messaged me, I got to respond to Nicole, right? Like I want to do the things that I want to do. And the stuff where I'm like, hey, we have a webinar tomorrow and could somebody promote that? I don't want to promote I don't want to create a graphic in Canva. Do you even want to know how long it would take me to be in Canva? And the thing would look so hideous. They wouldn't even let me share it. Right. So what do you love? What do you not? And then it's going to look different for you than it does for me. Right. I might have taken things off my plate that you absolutely adore and vice versa. So really getting clear on what does success actually look like? I don't know about you, but I keep hearing the buzz like $100 million business, like everybody's shooting for 100 million, right? Right. It's like, I'm very honest and I have no intention right now of 100 million. I have no want, desire, need for 100 million. I'm figuring out what feels good for me, right? And it's so funny when these people say these numbers. Again, fake number, somebody else said it. Now you're copying it. You don't even know what that feels like or looks like, or do you want it? Do you not want it? Right? You don't even know what it feels like at 50 million. So for me, it's like we are where we are at. I always want to get better. I always want to improve. So I'm going to definitely do that, but I'm going to continue to take it step by step. And as I'm sitting here in the moment, I'm always going to ask myself, how does this feel? Do I love my life? Do I love my business? Have I created a monster? Like, do I not even want to do this anymore? Right? I consistently look at my calendar and say, what am I dreading? Like, how do we get that off of there? Right? Well, sometimes it's clients. Who's in the program? Who do I hope doesn't show up to this call today? Let's not get them to renew. Like, hello, right? Like little things like that. I'm just always trying to make every little bit more enjoyable because why else would you create this? Like, we get to pick the people we work with, clients, our team. I want to enjoy all of those experiences. No, I do not want to walk into an event and be like, oh, great, she's coming. This is going to be the worst 2 days of my life. No, we don't want, we really like bless and release those people, right?
Yeah, I think that is so powerful. And if you want to talk a little bit more about that too, that awareness of what feels good, because no matter what kind of learner we are, right? So I personally am a tactile kinesthetic first learner. So for me, feeling naturally is the thing. But regardless of what kind of learner you are, I think when you can go within and do that check-in with yourself, ask yourself, how does this feel for me? Do I feel angst? Do I feel knots in my stomach? That's a good sign it's not working, even if it's paying you a lot of money. I just released recently a client that was giving me that kind of feeling, and she was paying a lot of money, but it wasn't a lot of money to me because it was killing me and it didn't feel good. She was disrespectful to my team. She was disrespectful to me. And I just said, I don't care about the money. I care about the experience that I'm having in my life. And so that's something, if you can spend another minute or so on how you, maybe it was early on, maybe it was more recently that you recognized that how your life is impacted, how you're feeling is the most important thing.
Yeah. I think I can get caught up in it. So I think there's moments of being confused of, well, this is just a temporary sacrifice and we're just in growing pains. But as soon as we get through this, it's going to be better. Or as soon as I start making this much money, then right? You always make these excuses. And sometimes we need somebody close in our lives to be that reality check of like, hey, I know you said you wanted to do this, but FYI, right? And those could be different people in different stages. So my husband is a really good one for finances. So he's like, you're always shooting for more money, but you never let us pay ourselves more money. Like, just confused. Like, where's all that extra money going that we have to earn gross revenues? But like, we don't take bigger paychecks when you make these giant leaps. I'm like, you're right. Like, what are we doing? Just so I can say that I have the next level business, right? And here's the thing. Sometimes it is ego, and sometimes it's okay that you want to fulfill this urge to win this award or to hit 1 million downloads because for you, maybe you're motivated by that achievement, that challenge, that growth that fulfills you. That's okay to have an ego that wants those things. And I think it's just that happy medium and finding that balance of, well, is that going to kill my family because I want to gross this much and it's going to take way more out of me? But nope, you're right. We're not going to get a bigger paycheck. Okay, well, how could I hit the big number? But when I hit the big number, we get a bonus or we get a right. Now, fortunately, we've incorporated profit first. So when we make more money, I do make more money. But that wasn't always the case. I didn't have profit first, for many, many years. So there were moments when I was doing all this extra work and we would never feel it. My assistant, when I say to her, please give me at least 2 hours a day of no appointments, which sounds probably really sad to many people. Like, what do you mean only 2 hours? You guys, my calendar is typically filled from 9 to 3, book solid. And I had to set a new rule up because I hated my life, literally hated it. I had to set a new rule of, if I don't see 2 hours a day of white space on my calendar, I'm going to flip, right? So here's what's happening. She has the rule. She has to follow the rules. And I'm like, hey, could you squeeze Nicole in? And she's like, what do you mean squeeze Nicole in? You just told me not. I'm like, she's a friend. I'm making this up, but I'm like, she's a friend. You got to squeeze her in. Like I make rules up. I'm like, just squeeze her in on whatever day we got to do this, And it's this like, I will, but let's just go back to this moment when you told me this. And it kind of looks like you're making me do this again. So I just want to be very clear that in about a month or so, you're going to feel the way you did feel about 3 months ago. Do you want me to proceed here? And then I'm like, thank you. Thank you for being the thing. It's hard for somebody when I'm the boss and I'm saying, you got to kind of scold me a little bit because I need to be held accountable. So, because we're the boss, so we can just make exceptions to the rule. Oh, nope, I just break it, just do it. Right. So, really putting those boundaries into place and then saying, listen, dropping the ego to say, listen, Kristen, I know I've told you this and now I know I've broken the rule and now I'm hating it again. I need you to be stricter. I need you to literally say to me, Stacy, this cannot happen. Yes. Being able to say no to the boss. It takes a certain kind of person that can do that, right? That can feel comfortable. But that's what I'm talking about, of just like bringing people and having that biz bestie, that mastermind friend to say, hey, I got this new idea. And she says, Stacy, you just said you weren't going to do any new ideas, that you have enough products and that you're good to go. And you're not doing anything new before the end of the year. Okay, thanks. Right. Like there's different people that can fill different needs. And I think you need to really assess, like, where are you needing accountability and who would be a really great person to talk to?
Such a brilliant place to wrap this up. Although I don't want to, I know you need your white space and we're pushing the envelope here. So before we go, where would you like people to find you to continue the conversation?
Yeah. So my podcast is now called Foot Traffic. All of the podcasts from the last 5 years can be found all there, but I would say Foot Traffic, Instagram at Stacy Tuschl. Yes, I have a big team. Yes, they post all over social media, but I always say, when you see my face, it's obviously me posting, and I'm definitely in my DMs a few times a day. So come say hi. I'd love to chat with you there.
Amazing. And you have a free group as well? Or is it just your clients?
Yep. So we have a free Facebook group, Foot Traffic Community. And we do free events and just extra bonus trainings. And actually, if you go into like the guide section in there, oh my goodness, the amount of content that you can't get anywhere else is just hiding in that guide section.
And I just have to fully endorse Stacy. I mean, you said we haven't exchanged money, but you don't know. I buy your stuff, dude. So I have things that I tell my team members, like, okay, you need to learn this thing. And I am not the one to teach you. Go through Stacy's course. So honestly, like, you're such an incredible content creator in your team and just turning that stuff out that's actually valuable and is not just junk, like more information. What I love about the way you share content is you make it actionable. And that's something that very few people do. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for being here. And I just appreciate you so much.
Thanks for having me. This was so fun. So fun to catch up again.
Definitely.